Okay. Hello, my name's David Nandini and I'm here with Darcy Hare. Darcy farms on the family farm and he is the chairman of the Wakool Landholders Association. That's a farmer group with about approximately 295 members. Darcy's also the vice chairman of Southern Riverina Irrigators, a representative group with about 1,800 members. So thanks for your time, Darcy.
No, thanks for having me, Dave.
And we want to talk about the Keelty report that was recently released by Mick Keelty, who was the interim Inspector General, and he was tasked to investigate the, I think the water sharing agreements, or not the water sharing agreements, but Darcy can give us a bit more detail there. But it came out of the very large protest rally in Canberra in December. Darcy and Chris Brooks met with various politicians, and from there Mick Keelty was tasked to prepare this report. So it's been released, Darcy. What do you think?
Yeah, so I guess it was great to have the amount of support that we did in Canberra. So
Yep.
you know, having those 4,000 concerned irrigators was massive,
And a lot of concerned businessmen and local people.
Yeah, that's
as well.
right, exactly. And you know, we had a team that sort of helped get that together, so that was great to have.
Yep.
You know, there's about 8 of us that organised it. So we got into the room to basically get to the negotiations of what we wanted, and we had about sort of 7 things that we wanted to look at brokering a deal for. But basically we wanted to look at the changing distribution, in the end is what we agreed on, the changing distribution in state shares across the Murray Darling Basin agreement, which is a 1915 agreement that sets out what states can access what water at what time through the Murray Darling Basin.
Right.
And so one of our key concerns was that you've got Queensland, New South Wales and Victoria derive their allocations from rainfall. Yet down in South Australia we've got this statutory obligation to deliver 1,850 gigalitres to their doorstep every year.
Right, regardless of rainfall in the catchment states.
Until you get to a very, very critical stage where you get to special accounting.
Right.
And if we haven't reached special accounting over the last 2 years of really low inflows, then it seems like a pretty useless clause to me that has some pretty weak triggers. And so we wanted to address the rainfall versus statutory obligation, and we wanted to address the lack of metering and measuring in the Northern Basin as well.
Right.
So, and that's contrary to what they were actually meant to do by 2011. By 2011, the whole Northern Basin was meant to be measured, compliant for floodplain harvesting. Their river taking's fine, that's all metered. But given the volume of floodplain harvesting that happens in Queensland, there is no sort of realm where they can defend that they're not having an impact on the Darling River flows, because they don't know what a sustainable limit of take is, because they don't measure it.
That's right. And in the southern, in the Murray River, of course, the water's captured in Dartmouth
and Hume,
and then Hume, and it's regulated all the way along the river, and what goes on the farms out of that river is very, very tightly regulated. So we know exactly how many megalitres go into each farm. But in the unregulated Darling River in the Northern Basin, there's no regulation there at all.
Exactly.
And what you referred to as floodplain harvesting is the capture of water before it even gets into the Darling River and the tributaries of the Darling. And
right.
as Darcy said, there's no measuring or metering because you can't.
And this is not irrigators versus irrigators. This is, we've established a region and industries on about 85% reliability. And if we're going to get to a time where we've got a flood in 2016, 100% allocation, the next year we've got 52, followed by
52% allocation,
followed by 3 years of 0.
Wow.
Then something very wrong is happening with how this entire federal water reform is playing out, and the way that it interlinks with state and even local government powers for development and such. So what we needed to do was basically get that Murray Darling Basin agreement looked at.
Right.
Also how it interlinked with the Murray Darling Basin Plan and the Water Act, because you cannot separate the Murray Darling Basin agreement and the Water Act. You just cannot. So we wanted to look at those changing distribution of inflows, But obviously that tied in a lot of other pieces of legislation that are, that obviously have a lot of weight in looking at this sort of stuff. And what it also hinged off of was Mick Keelty and that team in that office actually getting powers to look under the bonnet of what states were doing, and compel them for evidence to be able to substantiate or justify, what they took, how they took it, and all of how that worked, within the last sort of, I don't know, I guess 20 years of take.
And Mick Keelty, that was a federal government appointment, and the states, New South Wales, Victoria and South Australia, actually refused to participate.
Well, what is the most ridiculous? What is the most ridiculous thing about his appointment is that all the states agreed for a need for an Inspector General.
Yep.
And then they really rushed forward and made sure he didn't get any of his powers to do his job.
Yep.
That is how ridiculous this whole process is.
Yep. The states really didn't support the Keelty investigation at all, really.
No, that's right. They supported a media spokesperson that says that they were getting things done.
Yep.
Where in reality all that he did was spin wheels for 4 months and acted like our friend and like he was going to redistribute water in a more equitable way and actually look at the issues that have brought this region from extracting 1,900 gigalitres a year down to 660 gigalitres a year. 30%. We've had a 70% reduction in take. And the government still wants to come back and take 450 with the basin plan. They still want to come back and take 605 with the SDLs. I know I'm getting into a bit of detail, but we've lost 70% of the productive capacity of the region, and the government still wants more. And
so it was your hope that Mick Keelty would investigate that and hopefully come up with some solutions to answer those questions and even to counter what's happened, because 70% reduction in water availability and 3 years of 0% allocation over the last 3 years, really, there's a problem.
Yeah, exactly.
There is a problem.
Yeah, so straight away, even before Christmas, we got together with West Koorugan, Murray Irrigation.
These are different irrigator groups.
Yeah, within the Murray Valley. And we spoke to guys in Northern Victoria, the guys in the Southern New South Wales and Victorian regions that have been impacted by the changing distribution of inflows. And we came up with a document, a 60-page document.
Right.
So we had groups from Northern Victoria and groups from Southern New South Wales, which is why it highlights how ridiculous it was that Mick Keelty said we were protesting in the wrong city, because we got thousands of Victorian community members and irrigators that came along to express their concern.
Sure.
We live on the river, we're basically on the border of New South Wales and Vic, so we've got friends and family communities that we interact with, that are only a couple of kilometres away. So, and basically what we did was we got a document together, 60-page document. It has references from state-based papers on the Murray Darling Basin, federally based or paid for and funded papers, and then we had about sort of 10% of peer-reviewed papers by independent scientists and all the rest.
And they were submitted to Mick's investigation.
We submitted those in early February.
Right.
Once we were happy, so it ended up being about 60 pages. And so every single issue that we brought up, we could substantiate, i.e., prior to the basin plan and prior to massive amounts of development in the Northern Basin, there was, and obviously it's been a slight drying trend, there was 360 gigalitres that was coming into the Darling River and actually contributing to New South Wales state obligation to South Australia. So every year, under the Murray Darling Basin Agreement, New South Wales has to supply half of the 1,850 gigalitres to the SA border. The other half is supplied by Victoria.
Right.
And historically, based on a 2000 report by TOMS and sanctioned by the Murray Darling Basin Commission, who were in charge before the Murray Darling Basin Authority, said that 39%, or at New South Wales portion, 360 gigalitres, used to come down the Darling River.
Really?
And if you've got overdevelopment, if you've got changing flows into the river, whatever it is, the reality is if that river channel is dry, there's obviously massive socioeconomic and environmental impacts. One of the impacts for us back here is that we are not getting 360 gigalitres off our entitlement that we've got to send to South Australia.
Well, that's right. And if the water isn't provided via the Darling River, which it used to be, and now it's not,
Yep.
that quantity has to come out of the Murray River,
Exactly.
which affects the irrigators that take water out of the Murray River,
Yep.
which is Darcy Hare and all the irrigators in this area. So anyway, the report's come out. It's about a 50-page report, but there's 5 recommendations, Darcy. So we'll just run through the recommendations pretty quickly,
Yep.
and I'll just get your opinion. So recommendation 1, the MDBA should undertake further analysis of the causes of reduced inflows from the Northern Basin and the extent to which this is affecting state watershares. So that's the first recommendation.
Absolutely. I mean, it is an absolute no-brainer to get that done ASAP.
Yep.
This was meant to be done 9 years ago. I cannot stress that enough. They were meant to be metered,
Yep.
regulated. There's drone technology, there's teledyne telemetry that can
Yep.
look at basically if you've got flow, which we've just had
Yep.
recent rainfall events have been great. We could have looked at how much has been taken, how much is
Yep.
stored, and then obviously how much should be licensed and what is the sustainable level of diversion.
That's
And-
right. And
that-
so that quantity doesn't all have to come out of the Murray irrigation area. It's
Exactly.
got to be provided via the Darling River as it was originally
Exactly.
and originally planned.
Yep.
So I'll go on to the second recommendation, to increase trust in and transparency about water sharing. The MDBA should provide clear and easily accessible information about special accounting measures, including the circumstances under which they are applied and how they are used to determine state allocations. Bit of a long sentence there, Darcy, but
Yeah, so
yeah,
I mean,
what do you
especially
think?
accounting comes in and looks to distribute the resources in a way that takes away that statutory obligation to supply 1850 to the border. But as I think I touched on earlier, if you've got special accounting not coming in over the last 2 years of massively dry inflow periods,
right.
then special accounting is there as a null and void clause. If we don't have an allocation system that can look at that 1850 is going over the border and the New South Wales Murray's got 0 for 2 years in a row,
Yep.
and that doesn't trigger any special clauses to get us some water so that
Yep.
we can prop up this region and industry and businesses, then there's a null and void clause. So it needs to be looked at.
That needs
so
to be-
that, so
yep.
that's brought down.
So that's
Triggered.
a very good, important recommendation.
That is an important recommendation.
Okay. So we're going to recommendation number 3. The MDBA should clearly communicate the results of its examination of underuse of allocations and compare them with the submissions made to this inquiry so that accurate feedback can be provided to the community. So another long sentence there, Darcy.
Yeah, so I think the first 2 recommendations, the second one's sort of okay. The first one, if done right and if done in a timely manner
Yep.
and transparently, will be good. But the last 3 recommendations that are condescending, are an absolute slap in the face,
Really?
and they're basically painting us as water illiterate irrigators, that we don't know what we're talking about, that we need help from the MDBA to get across certain issues. And I just, it's a little bit disconcerting that you can spend so much time with a person like Mick Keelty and Ramsay Jabor from that Inspector General Office, and feel like they're going to help you and that they're going to listen to you and they hold you in high regard, that you've got integrity as a mutual respect. And then to have 3 clauses of a massive inquiry and review that got 4,000 people to Canberra,
Right.
and there's 3 clauses about an education process.
Yep. So we'll go on to recommendation 4. Now, got to pardon my ignorance here, but it says the BOC,
Yeah, so that's just the Basin Officials Committee,
the Basin Officials Committee.
and there's one person from each state that
Yep.
sits on that.
Yeah, okay. The Basin Officials Committee should consider implementing a single authoritative platform that combines information currently available on the various Commonwealth and state websites to provide high levels of transparency and trust and to improve water literacy. So I think that means to get a lot of the information into one source.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what the Murray Darling Basin Authority's been doing for the last 8 years, but
Okay.
I would have, and if you look at a key objective of the Water Act, it's to disseminate information
Yep.
so that you can have stakeholder engagement and work on a level playing field to
Yep.
give community confidence.
So it's sort of a repeat of what we've already got there.
It should have already been. Why hasn't the government done that?
Well, that's
already?
right, yep.
Um,
So recommendation 5 and the last one, the Basin Officials Committee, was it?
Yep.
The Basin Officials Committee should consider ways through which states and agencies could work together across their respective jurisdictions to include high water literacy in high school and higher education curriculums, including VET in regional areas. So that's the last recommendation, Darcy.
Yeah, so that just says to me, we're basically wasting our time trying to negotiate with the people that know what they're talking about, and we're going to try and infiltrate all their kids and educate the kids because the adults are too far down the personality road or something, and they can't be changed. So that that is absolutely condescending.
It's a bit of a lightweight recommendation, I would say, and you're not. I don't think it's constructive as far as putting water on the ground.
No, that's
myself.
right. Yeah.
So in summary, Darcy, you negotiated the report, the implementation to start with, and now we've got the result. Can you just give us a quick summary of what you think, or a conclusion of how you think it went?
Well, first of all,
or how this report answers what was requested to start with.
It basically backs up what we said about the Northern Basin, not being that there being a lack of information in there, so they can't actually look at what is their sustainable limit of take.
Yeah.
But apart from that, this was was a complete misdirection,
right?
And a waste of time. Mick Keelty had the opportunity to shine a light on what's happening in this basin and why this community has had, I guess cumulative impacts imposed on it over time.
Yep.
He had that opportunity. He obviously did not get that respect from the states because they didn't want to give him power to look at. That was a key part of it, that he got power to look at it. He did not get that power. There were promises that he made to us that he would address transmission losses through the system, which is a massive one. That's another part of the Water Act. That actually does offer some protective parameters for irrigators. That has just been completely left out. You look at Schedule 3 of the Water Act, and he was going to look at a user-pay system for irrigators. Like last year we had 165 days of flooding. The year before, 141 days of flooding. And if you've got a finite channel capacity and you're flooding it for 6 months of the year, then your losses are going to go through the roof. And the way that the Murray Darling Basin Agreement is written is those losses have to be borne by the people that are not using or ordering or demanding that water at that point, 700 kilometres downstream. That's the environment, the productive sector.
Yeah, I'll just point out one thing there. I don't know if viewers picked that up, but did you say there's been 2 years of flooding over the last couple of years?
Yes.
2 years of flooding, and farmers have had 0% allocation.
That's correct.
Now that's a real indication that there's a real problem, Darcy.
Yep.
And so in summary, Mick Keelty's report really didn't
address any of it.
It didn't achieve what you really wanted or hoped that would happen.
I mean, part of the role of an Inspector General, or in this capacity, is to make it easily understandable so that bureaucrats and government departments and advisors of politicians and politicians themselves can look at a list of issues, look at a list of recommendations, implement them, address the issues, fix it, so that we can go, the food producers of Australia in Victoria and New South Wales, can go back to doing what they do best, which is playing in the mud and producing food and fibre for Australia.
Yeah.
And at the moment, and you've got massive geopolitical risks currently. You've got the pandemic happening. We've got food shortages. We're importing dairy. We're importing pork.
Yep.
We've imported obviously wheat. We're importing rice. We've got a massive potential to feed 75 million people, but we cannot do it without sensible water policy.
Yeah, and this at this stage, this really didn't achieve that, Darcy.
Not at all.
Yeah. Well, look, thanks, Darcy. Thanks for your time, and once again, I still think that yourself and Chris Brooks and John Olicato and Jan Beer have really done a magnificent job, but just not quite getting the response that it really deserves.
Yeah, well, we need to get into the urban public, and we've got Shirley School with Speak Up. She's doing an excellent job, along with Lachlan Marshall, Carly Marriott, obviously, as well. So there's a lot of people that are in this that have got vested interest to get this region back to what it can be.
Yeah, right. Thanks very much, Darcy.
No, thanks, Dave. Cheers.